Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here on Campaign for America with Tricia Flanagan. For those of you who are new, and I suspect that many of you are new because the numbers that are coming in on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter, where we are streaming live on all three social media platforms, has been incredibly high, unusually high. And again, Tricia, this is a real testament and tribute to our supporters who are following us and who are viewing us. They're doing a lot of sharing, and we are getting a tremendous response, not only from New Jersey, but around the country.
Oh, exactly. And, these are the champions, right? I mean, we are moving forward by leaps and bounds with truth in media. We are bringing cutting edge information where you're not going to find anywhere else. And we're making sure that everything is vetted according to what's true, relevant, and empowering. And I think that the champions that are sharing our information, and especially those that are tuning in, it's more important than ever that we stay connected as conservatives, as constitutionalists, and especially as patriots. We're going to come into some very, very interesting days ahead. And the more connected we are, the better. And the more we share this critical information, the more powerful we will all be moving forward.
And what I'm hearing from our viewers is they like the idea that we are providing them with credible information and actionable information, that we're not embellishing, and everything we say, we do have documented facts. And some people have emailed us for those documents, and we have sent it to them. So our credibility is strong. People know we're not reporters. They know that we're not opinion editors. We're grassroots Americans who we believe that God has called to do what we are doing, and that is to inform the American people of a lot of truths that they are not being told, and to lead the charge to keep America first, to keep America as the shining city on a hill, and to keep America free. And how do we do that? We address the evil agenda of socialism and communism that we've talked about for quite some time, which leads me to this, Tricia. You and I and those here at Campaign for America have been working very hard over the past year or two, bringing information to the American people about the infiltration, the influence of the Chinese Communist Party. And for the most part, people understood, and they certainly accepted what we were saying. But there were those who laughed at us, who joked. And when I talk about those who laughed and joked and who refused to jump on board in a fight against the communists and the socialists, a lot of those people were GOP leaders. A lot of those people are elected officials who we implored them to stand up and to do what Ronald Reagan did, to fight and fight very hard against the communists. Well, they didn't. They didn't. In fact, the only one who really stood out and fought, in my view, was the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And I'm sure there were some senators and congressmen who also addressed some of the issues related to communist China, but not as aggressively and forcefully as the president, and perhaps not even as aggressively and forcibly as us. But now tonight, we get breaking news that everything we said, everything about the Chinese Communist Party infiltrating what? Our colleges, infiltrating our Congress, even infiltrating local governments. We have it here, folks. It's confirmed, and we're going to share that with you. We have it right here that everything we said, everything that we said that was ignored by the naysayers is now breaking news all over the country. In fact, even the mainstream media has no choice but to expose what we were talking about all along. So let's start with Representative Eric Swalwell. He's a Democrat, Tricia, of all places from California. The epicenter, probably first only to New Jersey, which is a clear second, the epicenter of socialism and communism's birth here in America. So now you have Representative Eric Swalwell. He's been in the spotlight lately because it has been reported that a Chinese national named Fang Fang or Christine Fang targeted up and coming local politicians, including those who had the potential to become national figures. Well, this congressman happened to be one of the people that the Chinese Communist Party targeted. So here's what happens, folks. And I told you, we shared with you all along that the slow process of a communist infiltration began a long time ago. This began in 2014. Fang reportedly took part in fundraising of Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign. Feng's earliest known engagement with Swalwell occurred through the Chinese Student Association, reported back in 2014, because she had developed close ties with his office then. Now, why do we bring this up? Remember what we said about the Chinese Confucius Institutes, the Chinese Communist Party bringing students into the United States, infiltrating with those students? Not all of them. I'm sure there are a lot of fine Chinese students here, but a lot of them spies, a lot of them working for the Chinese intelligence agency. Now, Tricia, we talked about this. We warned people about this. We let the American people know, do not turn your head, keep your eyes on the ball. The Chinese Communist Party is on the roll. They are here, folks. 270,000, it's been reported, 270,000 Chinese students here in the United States of America. And a lot of them are what? A lot of them, take it from me, an individual who worked with US military intelligence, take it from me. There are a lot of people from the Chinese intelligence agency now here in America. This is nothing to be ignored anymore. Tricia, we warned the American people, and now I find it very interesting, and it seems like it always happens that we're delivering the urgency of these issues first, and then the media picks up on that.
Well, exactly. And, you know, there's really a media blackout once again on this Eric Swalwell issue, just as there was with the Hunter Biden laptop information. The media is now subverting the truth on this. And look, what do we know? Well, we know that Eric Swalwell was in touch with Fang, as she's known, Christine Fang, as early as 2014, as you mentioned. A lot of this dates back to 2015, where the FBI was involved. This woman was able to get an intern into Eric Swalwell's office. And let's also not forget that not only was Eric Swalwell one of the Democratic presidential considerations this year, but he also sits on that all important Senate Intelligence Committee. That is where some of America's top secrets, some of our most confidential information is debated and decided. And, you know, I have spoken to some people that I know that have their ear to the committee activity and, you know, what's going to be on the agenda coming up when Congress comes back into session on January 6th. And I tweeted about this, I have some definitive sources saying that Eric Swalwell has, for all intents and purposes, been removed from the U.S. House Intel Committee. Now, Nancy Pelosi, it sounds like she's going to fight hard to keep him there, but the committee members, and especially those who clear the information for dissemination, are saying that Eric Swalwell has been removed from that committee. Let's see what Nancy Pelosi does when January 6th comes around, but this is a national security issue, and Eric Swalwell is in as deep as it gets.
Nancy Pelosi stated that she's not concerned about Mr. Swalwell. She also says that she's not concerned about his ability to serve in Congress despite his past connections with a suspected Chinese spy. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my entire military career has been with U.S. military intelligence. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. Anyone who has contact in any way, shape, or form with a hostile nation to this country should not be sitting in a seat with regard to U.S. national security. Believe me, every single person from Russia, from China, or any hostile nation that I came in contact with during the course of my career in the Navy, I had to report immediately to my superior officers. And believe me, if there was any true suspected interaction with them that caused concern with regard to U.S. national security, I wouldn't have lasted in the U.S. intelligence community. So here we have a sitting congressman who has in fact had contacts, highly questionable contacts with a alleged Chinese spy. And Nancy Pelosi says, well, I'm not very worried about that. I'm sure he could do his job, which leads me to this. Is it possible? Now, this is speculation, all right? When we don't have facts, we tell you we don't have facts. But as a military intelligence officer, wearing that hat for a minute, I'm wondering, Tricia, if in fact what was adding fuel to the fire of Russian collusion, of going down that rabbit hole, blaming Vladimir Putin and blaming Russian intelligence to interfere with President Trump's reelection. I'm just wondering if the Chinese Communist Party was around working with and adding fuel to the fire to take attention off of their intelligence operations here in the United States. All right, Tricia, I think we just lost you, but folks, I'm sure she'll get back on, and we'll get her back on soon. We've had some connection services here, but needless to say, as I asked Tricia, I posed that question to you. There has been some speculation and a lot of questions as to why the FBI and the Democrats went down that rabbit hole of doing what? Of pushing and pushing and pushing for 4 years the Russian collusion hoax. Make no mistake about it. We know it was a hoax, but there was always a question in my mind is how in the world did they get so-called information the way they did? How were they able to get to FISA courts without the information that you would actually need to get judges to approve of those things? So now all of this is coming back to roost, because what is happening, folks, is that the Chinese intelligence agencies may be involved in all of what we are seeing. So we have Tricia back. Tricia, welcome back. We had a little connection problem there, but we're back. You're back, okay?
Yeah.
So Trish, my question was this, if you didn't hear me, it was a speculation more than anything else. Now putting my military intelligence hat on, I'm now wondering about this Russian hoax again. Was the Chinese Communist Party involved in fueling a lot of bad false information to the FBI and to the Democrats, to those who clearly wanted to, in my view, overthrow President Trump's election? You think the Chinese Communist Party may have had something to do with this, in view of the fact that as far back as 2014 and 2015, way before President Trump announced that he was running for office, that the Chinese Communist Party got deeply involved with our political process, knowing that we were going to have an election in 2016?
Well, let's look at what we know there. I think you may be onto something, because when you look at how that percolated and how the impeachment was begun, it began in the Judiciary Committee in the House, right? Well, who sits on the House Judiciary Committee? At the time, it was Dianne Feinstein, Jerry Nadler. But let's not forget that Dianne Feinstein had that chauffeur who was exposed as having connections to the Communist Chinese Party. And she was involved with that individual for decades. Now, it's interesting to note that Dianne Feinstein has now stepped down as a member of the House Judiciary Committee. I think that we may see that as a graceful exit for Eric Swalwell as well. As you said, Nancy Pelosi is saying he's fit to serve in Congress. That's certainly debatable, but that may be a graceful exit point as Dianne Feinstein has stepped down from judiciary. But the common thread there, as you just mentioned, is the Chinese Communist Party. The other question is, how far did they infiltrate our system, and how much were they responsible for the debacle of that entire impeachment?
Well, to answer the question as to how far did they infiltrate our system, once again, people doubted when we put out information that they did, in fact, infiltrate city councils and offices of mayors on local government levels. And there are reports, and we have them, that they did get involved with a couple of mayors out in the Midwest, and to a point where there was alleged sexual involvement with these mayors. They all happen to be Democrats, and it's just incredible. I mean, folks, we've got to see the pattern here. This is involving Democrats. It's involving Democrat leaders across the country. They found in Democrats, for some reason, vulnerable points. So what we were saying all along with regard to the infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party, it has not only been on a federal level, not only congressmen and senators, and who knows, maybe in the case of a presidential candidate, we don't know yet, but certainly they've infiltrated city mayors. And Tricia, right now, with this information out there, just coming out, not only those two mayors in the Midwest, but I wonder how many more mayors and city council members and political leaders are now shaking in their pants, wondering if they're next to be headlined in the news.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the time that the information is starting to come out. And once that thread is pulled, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Democrats to get that all back together and put it nice and cleanly back in the box. I think we're reaching a new tipping point where things are starting to spill out so quickly that even the Democrat misinformation system is not going to be able to stop what's coming. And we have to keep an eye on the mainstream media and those blackouts. We're at the point where if the mainstream media is blacking it out, we know it's true.
Well, here it is. The report: Fang's relationships with at least 2 Midwestern mayors turned sexual, according to Axis, with at least 2 incidents being caught by FBI surveillance. Well, so the FBI caught these guys red-handed. We didn't know anything about this, did we? Not, folks, this is incredible. Day in, day out, hammering the president of the United States over his relationship with Vladimir Putin, over his relationship with Russia, day in and day out. And from 2014, folks, 2014, the Chinese had spies all over the country. They were literally in bed. I'm telling you, folks, this is no joke. Literally in bed with some of these politicians on a local government level, and involved in doing what? Somehow, could you imagine, Tricia? Somehow getting themselves involved with someone on our intelligence committee in the United States Congress. Look we're not stupid. The American people are not dumb. We all know what pillow talk is, right? All right. I can't imagine a trained communist intelligence officer getting someone in bed and not extracting information out of them. Folks, it just isn't going to happen. We're not dumb, all right? So the fact of the matter is, in my view, listen, we don't have facts that was any pillow talk, but I've got to tell you, you can connect a lot of dots. Listen, human beings are human beings. Some of these politicians, their pride, their ego, they like to talk, but this is a novice politician, all right? This is like most of them are. They don't understand that a lot of people that they run into, the beautiful women. Look when I was in the United States Navy down there in Virginia Beach, where we had our Office of Naval Intelligence, you go out to certain areas, there were beautiful Russian women there, all right? I mean, really attractive women. Now, I emphasize that because that's what draws guys that are away from home for a long time, all right? And so these women aren't there just to say hi. They're not there to become a matchmaker. Many of these women are Russian or were Russian intelligence agents, all right? KGB or former KGB agents. We were warned about that. Same thing with Chinese intelligence and other intelligence agencies. So we were trained to stay away from these women. And we were told what the traps were, what the wording was. But this congressman, he had no idea. So the question is this, Tricia, and it was asked by reporters of Nancy Pelosi, isn't there any vetting of anybody who goes on to or is assigned to our intelligence committees in the United States Congress? And her answer was, well, some yes, some no, we're not going to vet everybody. So there you go. You got somebody in contact with the Chinese Communist Party, and the Democrats simply do not care. And you know why, Tricia? It doesn't fit their narrative.
You're spot on. And, how naive does anyone have to be to not see that exact writing on the wall? The communist China, the Chinese Communist Party knows full well what they're doing with these female operatives. And to your exact point, these congressmen are going in so naive and so green. And, there was a day in our government where that kind of pillow talk was a red flag, and it would automatically disqualify someone from public service because they would be considered to be obviously tainted and obviously a candidate for blackmail. Obviously, those communication channels, so to speak, had been opened, and it would have been impossible to know what kind of information and American secrets would have gone to the other side. Now, because of a deficiency in leadership by people like Nancy Pelosi, this is where we're at. not in this day and age. And we have years of FBI investigations, years of open doors with these interns, as well as these women who are infiltrating our government. It's got to stop. And it's really a failure in leadership. We have to pick up the ball and move it forward to make sure that our American secrets stay secret.
Okay, before Tricia will break down what is happening with the U.S. Supreme Court and the cases that are being brought before them, we have another issue. Another state has jumped onto the socialist communist bandwagon. Throughout the past few weeks, we've talked about Governor Newsom in the state of California. We've talked about Governor Murphy in the state of New Jersey. Both those governors, and by the way, Governor Cuomo in New York, all three governors have gutted their states. Folks, the economies are not coming back. Someone might say, oh, gee, that's no hope. That's gloom and doom. It is. It is, folks. It is gloom and doom. Remember, Joe Biden offered us a dark winter. So in California, don't forget, they've threatened to cut the electricity and water off of law-abiding citizens in their businesses and homes. In New York, you're now charged a fee to go visit the tree at Rockefeller Center. If you could get there, there's no cops left in New York. And in New Jersey, we just have a governor that's run amok that is every day you wake up, there's a new order. Well, now we go to Virginia. We go to Governor Ralph Northam, another Democrat, socialist, communist leader. Well, he's announced today new targeted measures. Now here's the key. New targeted measures for what reason? Well, their reason is to slow the spread of the COVID-19 in his state. Well, we'll get to some of those new measures in a moment. But Tricia, that's an excuse because I have concluded, and I'll qualify my statement in a minute, that the measures that they're taking truly are not there to curb COVID-19, although they say it. And I'll qualify that by saying this, and then I'll tell you why the measures are there. They are doing the same thing over and over again. Look, the definition of insanity is when you repeat the same thing over and over again and come out with the same answer. They've shut their states down. They've ruined businesses. They're wearing masks. They're wearing gloves. They're wearing spacesuits. These governors have done everything possible to so-called mitigate the virus. Nothing's worked. None of this has worked. It's interesting that these are the states where they're saying there's been spike. And yet they're the states that continuously do what? They actually give orders for the real reason, the real true reason why these orders are going out. And that is to ebb away at our constitutional rights. That is to ebb away at our freedoms and our liberties. There is not a person I've talked to, and now even some Democrat moderates and conservatives who are now getting a little shaken up over what's happening. Because, as I'm going to share with our viewers now, this is what's happening right now as we speak in the state of Virginia. All individuals in Virginia, every single citizen, and you too, Democrats, you Democrats who put these socialists and communists in office, you must remain in your place of residence between the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. Think about this, Tricia. You're in the United States of America. You will be jailed or fined if you walk out your front door after midnight on any night. Frankly, I like to walk sometimes at night, all right? And it could be 1 a.m. We live in a safe area to look at those beautiful stars. If you live in Virginia, you can no longer do that. Would you ever believe, Tricia, in the United States of America, in one state like Virginia, that you would be confined? This is confinement to your house. For what reason? That's at midnight, you walking outside your house is going to cause a super spread. Again, socialism and communism, Tricia, on the march.
Oh, well, exactly. This must be one smart virus, right? That it can tell time. None of this makes any sense. And I think that it extols exactly what you're saying, that there's another hidden agenda, because let's look at the real information again. I just got some new statistics today that I'm pouring through about how when we look at the leading indicators of places like Europe, there was a second wave, but there was mitigation very quickly, meaning that the wave, it swept through, and then the time was shortened to when it went through the population. And that's what we usually see epidemiologically with viruses. If there is a second wave, it's a shorter, more contracted, less virulent situation. So that begs the question, what scientific data are governors like Governor Northam using to make this determination and send out this edict? And, number two, where's this consideration of the Constitution, America, when citizens have to be worried about if they're going to be arrested, as you said, by walking out their door? That's unconstitutional. And I hope that there are lawsuits percolating right now to push back on Governor Northam's ridiculous anti-constitutional edicts.
Well, it gets worse. All Virginians age 5. Think about this. You're a mother, right? My wife, she's a mother. We all have 5-year-old children. All Virginians age 5 and over are required to wear face coverings in indoor settings. Think about indoor settings. Hey, you own a family, one family home, you live in an apartment. Indoor settings, folks, with others, and when outdoors within 6 feet of another person. Now, folks, they're actually around the country, and it looks like Newsom in Virginia is pushing this to the edge now. If you don't wear a mask, some of these states have actually said this, in your own home, you are subject to fines and possibly much more heavier sanctions and maybe even arrest. Now, of course, one would ask 2 questions. Look at, and I'll ask you, you're a mother. How do you keep a mask on a 5-year-old, whether you're indoor or outdoor? How do you do that?
Yeah, it would nearly be impossible. And I would even argue that it's unhealthy and it's psychologically damaging. I mean, children that young are first not really susceptible to COVID-19. The studies have borne that out. They're not spreaders, and there's a very, very low risk of contraction. So, when you look at putting a mask on a child that young, even learning wise, young children developmentally, they need to see facial expression. They need to be able to do that themselves, to mimic and mirror. This is going to have far-reaching consequences. And as a mother, I would refuse that for a child that young.
What's really troubling is they are actually setting it up where neighbors will be pitted against neighbors. And I said this to a reporter today, where the police are going to be pitted against the people and the people are going to be pitted against the police. And I feel sorry for those cops out there. That's why I've said police chiefs, police executive officers, start pushing back like those 4 sheriffs over there in California. I mean, you're being ordered to make law-abiding citizens into criminals. Now, remember this, all right? Just think about this. Months ago, maybe a few years ago, when we were addressing the Second Amendment issue, all I heard was, well, you know what? They're not going to go after anything else. We've warned that once they get through with the gun issue, they're going to go after freedom of worship, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. We were laughed at. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. My wife, Natasha, every single day without fail, reminds me of when she told me, remember Lieutenant Steve Rogers? She doesn't call me Lieutenant Steve Rogers, but remember when you every day said to me, it'll never happen in America. Don't worry about socialism. I know you're from Soviet Russia. It's not going to happen. Well, it's happening. It is happening now. She was right. I was wrong. So the fact of the matter is that now you're going to be in your home and you're going to think, gee, who's going to peek in my home? Well, talk to the people in New York about that when Mayor de Blasio told them to take pictures of their neighbors. This is tantamount to political officers in our neighborhoods. Tricia, the new Neighborhood Watch, the 21st Century Neighborhood Watch, compliments of who? Of political leaders who were elected to office by Democrat socialists in this country, and compliments of the Chinese Communist Party playbook. Are we in trouble?
Well, we really are. And that's another reason we have to step up right now, because what are you going to have neighbors with binoculars peering into your home, into certain rooms? I mean, there have been health edicts that said, you have to wear your mask at all times, even in the bedroom, so to speak. This is egregious. This is a complete violation of privacy and a violation of our constitutional rights. There was even an example in New Hampshire of a child who was grilled going back to school after Thanksgiving. Teachers were asking children, how many guests did your family have at their Thanksgiving table? So asking basically children to rat out their parents. This is sick. This is borderline psychotic. And this is an example, as you just said, of the control that originates in communist countries like China. And this is how they control their population with social scoring and, have everything in view, every step you take, everything you do. That's what's coming if we don't wake up and stand up and push back against this atrocity.
So my question to those of you out there who doubt a lot of what's going on, we have the facts, all right, so it's happening. My question to you is this: those of you who are Democrats, who are socialists and communists, who is allowing all this to happen, because I know 90% of our viewers are working hard. We could see it. I mean, we could see them helping a local level, government level in each community to help us fight this evil agenda. But my question to you is this, to the Democrats and to the socialists, all right? Because I know a lot of you are watching. Soon, under the Biden administration, you're going to see a mandatory mask wearing, all right? Mandatory wearing of masks. It's going to happen, all right? Listen, I don't like a mandatory everything. I want to be able to make the choice, okay? And but that'll probably happen, all right? So you might let that slide as you let everything else slide. But here's my question to you: when you are told that you will take a vaccine shot, when you are told that you have no choice, we're going to stick a needle in you, and we're going to give you that shot, whether you like it or not. And if you don't take the shot, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get fined. You might even go to jail. If you don't think that can happen, folks, again, talk to people who lived in Soviet Russia, in Venezuela, and other places. Tricia, I think, maybe I'm hoping that will be the trigger. That will be the boiling point that will cause a massive, massive backlash of American patriots. Because right now, people have been pretty quiet. I'm a little troubled over that. There should be massive, massive protests in the streets, as we have seen in other parts of the world, against these governors, these draconian mayors. That hasn't happened yet. And it probably hasn't happened because of the cowardly acts that we've seen of people we elected to office. They're so quiet, they're like sheep. I can't find any of them. Where are they? People are yearning for leaders. Well, we're leading the charge, folks. Tricia Flanagan, myself, and there are a few others who are going to be coming on the air over the next few weeks. We've decided to lead the charge against these draconian people. And so Tricia, what do you think? You think, once they start forcing people to take medication or vaccines that, as far as I'm concerned, haven't been proven yet to work. I understand now there are reports out there that people are getting pretty bad reactions from some of these things. So I think it should be up to the individual after they've consulted their medical doctor. Simple as that. Give people the choice. And if they don't want to take it and they get the virus, well, then that's a choice they made, right? I mean, that's their choice. But to force people to do something against their will, especially when it comes to their body, isn't it interesting? We hear the pro-abortion people, oh, this is my body. I'm going to do what I want with my body. Well, I want to do what I want with my body now. I don't want a mandated vaccination. Now, what about that analogy?
It's, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? And, they don't like their own words being fed back to them, the Democrats.
All right, folks, it looks like we lost Tricia again. So I'm back, and we are having some communication or connection problems with her, but hopefully she will be back. But my point, ladies and gentlemen, has been the fact that we certainly have a situation where the government seems to be taking complete control of our lives. And it's something that we simply do not want to see happen as we move forward. So what we have to do, folks, is be cognizant of the fact that that we have to be in charge of our own lives. We have to take control of our lives. And I got to tell you, it's getting to a point where there's going to be a trigger. There's going to be a boiling point in this country where people are going to say enough is enough. But I've said all along, and I'll repeat, look at the double standard of Democrat, socialist, communists. especially those, and I repeat it, and I'll repeat it again in case people didn't get my point, that the liberal lefts, progressives, what they are constantly saying is that with regard to abortion, for example, it's my body, I'll do what I want to do with it. Well, why doesn't that count for me? That I will do what I want with my body. I don't want a mandated vaccine. Simple as that. And for those of you who are crying right now, oh, but you're going to cause a super spreader. No, I'm not. I'm one person. All right. I'm one person. So, Tricia, what about that? What about what we just talked about, the fact that there's a double standard here?
Yeah, it's such an appropriate analogy to draw because, the Democrats don't like their own words fed back to them. And if there is choice across the board, it has to include a choice about vaccinations. And I've been a huge proponent of medical freedom and medical choice. And I've fought long and hard. And there are a number of groups in just New Jersey alone. Thousands turned out for the Kill the Bill rally in December of last year to make sure that mandatory vaccinations were shot down. The Democrats have promised to bring it back up in our state legislature, but to tee it up on a national level, when you look at this vaccine, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I am a biochemist. And I have looked at this vaccine, at two of the manufacturers and what their vaccine entails. And this is a brand new vaccine called a messenger RNA transport system and delivery system. And that is something that has not been well studied when it comes to long-term side effects. And while I'm not saying that this is unsafe, the FDA is about to clear the Pfizer vaccination as we speak. But the bottom line is, you mentioned side effects. There were two people in the UK who were in a clinical trial who had some adverse anaphylactic reactions. Now, that's an acute response, but when it comes to those long-term harms that could potentially come with a brand new type of vaccine, that's something that we, especially given our constitutional rights, should never be forced to take. It's always our choice. It resides in the First Amendment.
All right, folks, Tricia Flanagan is going to break down some of the issues regarding the Supreme Court and the Trump agenda. Now, some of you have noticed that we have extended our broadcast another 10 or 15 minutes up to around 7:10. 7:15. Why have we done that? We've done that at your request. What's happening is people have actually asked us to stay on an hour. I think that's a little too long. People tend to drift off after that, but our viewership is growing. People have requested that. So, Tricia, without further ado, we got a lot to unpack in a short period of time regarding a lot of confusion in reference to the Supreme Court cases now being discussed.
Oh, yes, you're right. We do have a lot to discuss, and a good thing I can talk fast, right? So, here's the bottom line. There has been so much confusion that has also been fueled by the liberal mainstream media, because what they're doing is they're taking one aspect of a news story and they're spinning it to make it sound like it covers the whole issue. And I'll give you an example. So we know that there are now two big pending lawsuits at the Supreme Court. One has been teed up by Representative Mike Kelly, and included in that was a request for an emergency injunction to prevent the certification of the Pennsylvania votes that are being alleged as fraudulent in that lawsuit. So what happened was the Supreme Court, within 34 minutes, decided that they were not going to allow the emergency injunction aspect of it. But the entire case will still move on through the Supreme Court. It hasn't been, we haven't heard that they will hear the full case yet, but only the emergency injunction was denied. So what the mainstream media did with that then is they ran that as a story that said the entire case had been denied by the Supreme Court. That is not true. That is still a live case. Now, moving on to the other case that's most important, that most legal scholars, including Alan Dershowitz, believe is the best opportunity to decertify this entire election, is the Supreme Court case that has been teed up by Texas and now has been enjoined by at least 17 additional states. And that's the one that has been docketed the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the briefs. So that's step number one. And I believe that 3 p.m. today was the deadline for those briefs. And we will have some breaking news, I am confident, in days to come. But as of right now, that Supreme Court case is still pending. And again, the court has agreed to hear the briefs. Now, that just shows you how desperate the mainstream media Democrats are to change the narrative and make sure that they support the idea that President Trump doesn't have a chance to get to January 20th. That's not true on the court issue, and it's also not true on one more channel, and that's the congressional committee that will convene on January 6th, and they will deem on their own whether or not the Supreme Court intervenes. The Congress will decide on their own whether or not they will certify the electors who are being certified on December 14th, but they will make their own unilateral decision. And if they decide that they will not honor, if either they deem the electorate of the certification to be invalid, or whatever their reasoning is, they have the option, just like they did in 1877, just like they did in 1824, they can take it upon themselves to remand it back to their own session. And in that scenario, every state gets only one vote, and Republicans outnumber Democrats in that equation. There's a lot still to come. So stay tuned, and please don't listen to the mainstream media that says it's over until it really is over.
Excellent analysis, Tricia. Thank you for that. Folks, I went round and round and round today with reporters regarding this issue. And some of them kept on pushing the narrative that the president has committed a great disservice to the country. And they asked me the question, when is enough enough? My answer has been and will continue to be, this has been probably one of the greatest services to the country that any president could provide. He's showing us how the process works. He's showing us that there's checks and balances. He's not breaking the law. He is actually working within the framework of our founders. He's working within the framework of what you and I voted for since the day this country was founded. So the fact of the matter is that we're all getting a heck of an education on the greatest country on the face of the earth called the United States of America. So to answer the question directly, when is enough enough? Enough is when every single pathway and avenue has been exhausted and a decision is made, yay or nay. That is when enough's enough. And I am confident that when that time comes, the president will do what's in the best interest of this nation. There's rumors that he's not going to show up at the inauguration, that he's going to do this and do that. He hasn't said that he's going to do such things. He said that he will do the right thing. He will do what's good for this country. And I'm convinced of that. So as Tricia says, it ain't over till it's over. All right, two things before we wrap up. You're going to want to hear this one before you go. Tomorrow night, folks, we are going to provide our viewers and listeners with a major announcement. I mean major, that will impact the state of New Jersey's gubernatorial race in 2021. It's going to be big, folks. It's unexpected. People don't know what it is. We haven't leaked it. We haven't talked about it other than amongst ourselves. But tomorrow night on this broadcast, we're going to make a major announcement. And it's something that, Tricia, I could say we really thought a lot about and came to a conclusion that we should do what we're going to announce tomorrow night, because that will be, at least in our view, New Jersey's best hope. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, I agree. And I think, 2021 is so pivotal in so many ways. And it's up to us to stand in the gap that we talked about on prior shows to make sure that we bring the conservative banner forward. And nothing's going to be more important than the way we do that in 2021.
So there we are. Tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. here on Campaign for America on YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Facebook Live. Major announcement that will impact the New Jersey gubernatorial race in 2021. And finally, last but certainly not least, we want to express our deepest best wishes and happy Hanukkah to all of our Jewish friends and other friends. Look at, we're Christians here, or my wife is Jewish. I mean, we celebrate Hanukkah. We celebrate Christmas. We celebrate the Judeo-Christian values in which our nation was founded upon. So happy Hanukkah to all of you. You have helped make this nation a blessed nation. We've always said, at least I've always said, We will always, as a nation, stand with the nation of Israel. I've always said, look, we got 50 beautiful stars on this flag, right? And there is one more star that we do stand with, and that's the Star of David. Why? Our greatest and our closest ally, and perhaps one of those nations like us, where God has put the shadow of his wings over. So happy Hanukkah to all of you. And I know, Trish, you want to also wish a happy Hanukkah.
Oh, I would love to. Yes, God blesses those who stand with Israel, right? And we, as Americans, stand with Israel always. And what better way to enter this season than to remember that it's all about the joy of light, and that's what Hanukkah brings us. So, to all of those who celebrate, all our Jewish friends here and around the world, we wish you a happy and blessed Hanukkah.
So please share this broadcast far and wide. I mean, we've got, look at over 1,000 views on Twitter, of all places, on one of the broadcasts. Same thing with Facebook Live and YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As you know, it doesn't cost anything. Become a follower on Facebook, as well as a follower on Twitter. So that's it, folks. So have a great evening. I hope and pray that we've provided you with a lot of critical information that will help you sort through a lot of the nonsense that we're receiving from the mainstream media, especially. That's it. So have a good night. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, the chief end of man is to what? To love and glorify God forever. Until 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Have a good evening.